we can get started now. And I'll do an introduction while a few more people trickle in. I want to welcome everybody to Resource Roundtable. My name is Cindy Brooks. I'm the director of EDC Team Jefferson. The Roundtable is an ongoing event where we invite one or more guests and invite them to provide a short presentation to introduce their services and provide the community with an opportunity to get to learn about who's out there in terms of business support services and nonprofit support services. We're also providing an opportunity for the community to engage. So we're not filling the whole hour with presentations, but we're allowing time for questions and for story sharing and for observations in the spirit of mutual support. So I'd like to start today with a couple of announcements, 3 announcements. The first announcement is just that the Resource Roundtable will be an ongoing event on the 3rd Thursday of the month, just using this link with no registration required. And we'll have a variety of guests. Everybody will be presenting on some kind of topic relevant to services for our community. So please put it on your calendar and be sure to join us. The second announcement has to do with a business planning class, which has been popular in the past here in the Jefferson County area. We've connected with Jim Williams, the instructor, and he agreed to offer an online course for us starting February 23rd. So we have a registration link for that on our website at edcteamjefferson.org. I'd encourage you to sign up if that would be useful to you. And lastly, and maybe more importantly, this is a time-sensitive announcement. EDC Team Jefferson is working with Jefferson County to allocate small business and nonprofit grants from federal ARPA funds. So we've just launched the grant application portal. It's live on our website. You can find it on the COVID drop-down tab. There are also a number of pop-ups. I think it would be hard to miss. The application will be open until March 11th. And the applications will be reviewed by a community review team. The grants are designed to assist organizations that have experienced significant COVID impact, and also organizations that have not been able to successfully apply for prior grant offerings. So if you've been impacted by COVID, we certainly encourage you to apply. Our guests today at Resource Roundtable will speak to the field of HR, and in particular, employee retention. Now, we chose this topic for this roundtable because the EDC issued a survey to our community in December, and employee retention and meeting payroll were top concerns for our community. We know that these are changing times and that businesses and nonprofits are having to adapt to changes in the business landscape. And some changes have been required due to efforts to mitigate the spread of the COVID virus, and other shifts, people are changing how they think about work, and that has a trickle-out effect, resulting in the willingness or reluctance of workers to return to their jobs. Traditionally, we've been thinking about business as a functional transactional activity, the sales of goods and services. And if you look at our GAAP accounting financial statements, employees show up as an expense. And expenses in traditional business thinking must be managed to maintain a profit margin. So employees on an expense sheet are like any other input. And our current context and the difficulty retaining employees highlights the question, is this really the best premise when considering the human beings that are choosing to spend their life energy in support of our business or nonprofit mission? Many businesses are grappling with how to change their thinking when traditional incentives like pay raises or the ability to work remotely or maybe additional vacation time aren't enough to achieve employee retention. So we have with us 2 experts in the field, 2 individuals that work with Jefferson County businesses to address employee retention and the evolution of HR in this time. What I'd like to do is to introduce each of our guests, and then Kristina will present first, Casey will present second. If you have questions, please put them in the chat, and we can decide as we go, depending on how many questions come in, if we want to answer them in between the presenters or with the second half hour. So I'll introduce first Kristina Hines. Kristina is a certified business advisor with the Washington Small Business Development Center. She has nearly 20 years of experience in human resources, payroll, business administration, small business consulting, marketing, and communications. She's a resident of Whidbey Island and is currently also serving the North Olympic Peninsula. She has an intense desire to see our small businesses succeed. So Kristina, in addition to sharing your perspective on employee retention, please let us know how people can sign up with SBDC and access the network. Casey Upshaw is the owner of Kinship HR, a nonprofit and small business HR consulting firm. Casey's lived in Port Townsend since 2017 and founded Kinship as a way to invest in our local business community. So Casey takes a personalized approach to small business growth by forging long-term relationships committed to helping your business set and reach new goals. Kinship sets itself apart by not just advising, but executing the work and exceeding expectations along the way. Kinship is dedicated to promoting the unique value of independent businesses to foster a thriving community. So we'll also get to hear Casey's perspective on employee retention. And Casey, I'm sure you'll let us know how to get a hold of you as well. Excellent. All right. So just one note on why we've invited both Casey and Kristina to speak on this topic. What I've noticed in my outreach to small businesses is that some businesses want to learn how to do it themselves internally, like do a better job at HR, and other businesses want to just hire it out. And some are in between, like we're trying to learn, but that takes too much time. I just want to call somebody and have it done for me. So we're actually trying to present a spectrum of services to you so you can decide where you fit on that spectrum and reach out to the appropriate provider. So with no further ado, I'd like to invite Kristina Hines to present.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Okay, I'm going to start by sharing my screen here.
It's loading. There it is.
Okay. Okay, so as Cindy mentioned, my name is Kristina Hines. I am a certified business advisor with the Washington Small Business Development Centers. I'm currently the advisor for Island County as well as Skagit County, and at the moment for Jefferson and Kalaloch as well. The mission of the Small Business Development Center is to help businesses grow and succeed through advising, education, and research. We empower businesses to make informed, impactful decisions that create wealth, build wealth, and not only for the business owner, for the community as well in which they reside. And we embrace responsible stewardship of public resources. We are a public resource as we are, our program is an SBA program, and that is where we receive our funding. We cultivate partnerships to ensure entrepreneurs have the resources and tools to thrive. So we partner with our economic development community and other individuals throughout and corporations throughout the state to be able to provide our clients with the best in-class service for business advising. And the way that we do that is we provide no cost one-on-one business advising services. I mentioned in our mission, education is pretty big. So you'll see here a list of things that we provide education on. So I'm not going to go name all of them. I'm sure we can find a way to get this presentation to you after when we're through here. So as Cindy mentioned, there are a couple different ways to tackle the idea of retention. And she mentioned what's happened, especially since COVID, but to be honest with you, this has been a long time coming. We've seen these middle school changes year after year after year of what employees want really and what people are willing to deal with. And nowadays it's not anything like it was 30 years ago. And this is starting to be in every industry where, slowly we saw it taking over the corporate world, right? And now we're seeing it start to migrate into small businesses. It was kind of pushed there due to COVID. We're seeing changes in how employees want to do work. And it can get confusing. How do we meet those needs of the employees, right? Because they're seemingly changing, and some of them seem pretty impossible. So where I start is kind of going through the psychology first of what type of factors are at play here. What are we dealing with when we're thinking about employees leaving or coming or going? And one of the more important pieces, so this is right here on your screen, you'll see the psychology behind the workforce, if you will. And so this is Hesberger's two-factor theory. And I'm going to focus on the hygiene factor. The hygiene factors, which are all on the right-hand side, those are the needs that are necessary, that need to be met in order for people to work or work in your establishment. The motivator factors, those are ones that will help people to work harder, but won't necessarily keep people. They're not make it or break it type issues, whereas the hygiene factors are. Ultimately, behind these hygiene factors of working conditions, peer relationships, leadership quality, job security, compensation, and status, they kind of all have an underlying idea of belonging and connection at some level. Maybe not so much the compensation, but we can kind of get to that part in talking about how we show value. So that's why, and how we show connection or prove this to our employees. So humans have a basic need for belonging and connection. We're naturally motivated to develop and maintain the personal bonds with others, right? So that's kind of a background of why I'm going to talk about these reasons employees leave and why they stay and why relationships are important. So here's just a short list of, and it's not changing on your screen, is it? Just mine? There we go. Why employees leave. Their work arrangements aren't flexible. Their boss lacks empathy, which some of these we see migrate a little bit between whether or not it's just their boss and their boss's behavior, or if it gets specific, lacking empathy. You would think that compensation would be at the top of this list, and on some lists it is. But there's so many studies out there. There's so many studies. So I kind of just go with where things are trending right now. And right now, flexible arrangements with work, a good relationship with your boss, a healthy workplace, those are coming in almost level with compensation. So it's really something that's important to take into account, especially if you're looking at a retention strategy when you don't have the finances to increase compensation. How can you resolve some of these reasons that employees leave? Feeling undervalued, that's the compensation or recognition piece. Workplace culture is toxic. There's lack of development or growth opportunities. They feel a lack of trust and lack of autonomy. They're overworked. They're seeing other good employees leave, or they have a change in personal circumstances. Why employees stay? Healthy work environment. There are significant rewards and recognition opportunities for them. Their work is, whether it's hours or location, there's some type of flexibility to their work that they need and that fits their lifestyle. There is a scope for growth and development. They have a healthy relationship with the manager, and then competitive compensation. Okay, so given all those reasons of why employees leave and why they stay, I've chosen to point out that it's all about relationships right now. We tend to overlook this so much and just say, nope, this is the way I'm going to do it and everybody should deal with it. Life's not like that anymore. We talk about the work, and I'll actually get into this a little bit later about the work-life balance myth. But essentially, retention is about relationships. What do the relationship look like? And how can you improve it? And here's some of the questions you can ask yourself as you're looking inward. If you have high turnover rates right now, what do you know about each and every one of your employees and their life? What do you know? If it's nothing, that's a problem, or it will show up as a problem later. Do you offer them learning opportunities? Are you honest, fair, and respectful with your employees? Do your employees trust you? I'd throw in there, do your employees like you? Because that's going back to the whole relationship, right? Are you meeting the intrinsic needs of your employees? So that first list of what's so important for employees nowadays. Are you in tune with employee wellness? Again, back to the whole idea of the relationship and caring about your employees. Sorry, guys, I have two screens going here for some reason and can't get it to, there we go. Did I just close it? Can you still see it?
You can still see it.
Okay. Is it not playing on a slideshow for you guys? It's just playing regular. Okay, well.
Yeah, we can see the left sidebar.
Okay, I don't know why it's not showing this other one. So I apologize for that. I don't know why it's not picking the right screen. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going. So transparency, building trust. Trust is one of the biggest indicators of a healthy relationship, right? So how do we build that trust with our employees and help foster those relationships? One is efficient onboarding. If you have a really poor onboarding program or somebody's already talking about what a nightmare it is to work at your location while an employee is onboarding, you will never have a good relationship with that employee. They are already thinking about leaving once they experience something like that. The next is clear and accurate job descriptions. Employees want to meet your expectations. They really do. So tell them what you expect. Fair and open pay practices. Pay structures are not proprietary information, despite what a lot of people believe. The more open you are, and that encourages fairness in your wages, the happier your employees will be. Performing employee reviews and one-on-ones. These are opportunities to connect. Let's change the idea that a one-on-one means you're in trouble. It should be used as an opportunity to connect and fulfill a piece of that intrinsic need for the employee and for the business owner themselves. And then wellness benefits consideration. So the latest and greatest is focus on wellness, employee wellness, and how well they're coping with outside stressors, either from their personal lives or even inside stressors at work. And I kind of mentioned this too, there's a myth of work-life balance. The work-life balance implies that there's some type of equilibrium that we can reach. And it's really doing more damage than it's doing good. And the reason is because our expectations are not in line with reality. And this all goes back into the idea of having a healthy relationship. Is having healthy expectations. And, Michael J. Fox talks about acceptance over expectations. And that's really what it is, accepting reality of what it looks like to be an employer in today's world. And then I threw in some wellness examples as kind of just to give you some idea of what some other businesses are doing. I understand that some of these are bigger businesses and aren't considered small businesses, but it's still nice to see a little bit of a look at what different companies are doing. Winn-Dixie does midday yoga and other type of workouts midday. They have full cafeteria. They do monthly town halls, and special events to make sure that they're hearing from their employees and what their employees want and need. Brinnon Telecom, fully stocked kitchen for free meals, paid volunteerism, meaning you could volunteer during work time. Regency centers, paid monthly parking. That's in a city, so it's pretty significant. Paid volunteerism as well. Paid wellness activities. They actually pay you if you do certain workouts. And then welcome aboard gifts during onboarding. Pratt & Whitney has a full gym in most of their offices, VIP access to all air shows, a full cafeteria, catered monthly town halls, free uniforms, free PPE, and a significant budget for employee recognition that allows departments to do things such as taking everybody out to, for example, when they were in San Diego to the Padres game. But those are just some ideas that help improve the relationship by showing some sort of giving a tangible value to the employee representation of your appreciation or your caring about them. Okay, finally, I'm done. You don't build a business, you build people, and then people build the business. And here is my contact information. In order to become a client of the Washington SBDC, you will have to go to our website and enter a form to request an advisor. That can be found at www.wsbdc.org. Or you can email me directly and I can send you the links. And that's it for me, Cindy.
Thanks, Kristina. Would you put your contact information in the chat for people? Oh, looks like Brian's put your email in there already.
Oh, thank you, Brian.
We have one question. I don't know if Casey and Kristina, if you can both see it. We could choose to address it later, or we could choose to address it now.
I would let's see. I can take a stab at it. I had a chance to read it, but I know Kristina was just presenting, so we could. Okay. Alex was talking about the difficulty in addressing flexibility with work in a sector like agriculture, and that there are so many sectors where the scheduling is unavoidable, and some sectors have the luxury of hybrid work or flexible work and others don't. But what you might have as an asset is the ability to diversify tasks. So if you had it and cross-train, and so if you had a team, I don't know, just for example, that worked 8 hours a day picking the produce, and then another team that sorted and washed produce, if those could be switched into 4-hour shifts, you're going to just not get as dull of work. You're going to have more variety. That could be really helpful. And I hear this a lot of how can we offer competitive wages when the fast food or service industry wages and tip structures are just going through the roof right now. And while you might not be able to compete with the base rate, any type of benefit is going to be a big boon for your competitiveness. And then you also have to think about your career development opportunities. And if we're going into the fast food industry, there might not be a lot of career development opportunities. Whereas in agriculture, they might get to learn about the administrative farm operations, or get to do some community engagement at the farmers market, or have more unique opportunity to grow in that sector. Because I think at least the people that I know in our region in Chimacum who are doing farming, they have such a deep passion for it and are really eager to become involved and ingrained in the businesses that they work for. So I think giving them that sense of ownership and inclusiveness can really help. But there's no easy answer, of course. Yeah. Thanks for asking, Alex.
I agree with Casey wholeheartedly. Obviously, there's no easy answer, but one thing that you can do is to provide those learning opportunities. when we're running a business, we tend to tell people what to do, but not why they're doing it. And those why pieces are really important. People find value in that, of being able to understand the business better. And small business owners, I believe, should look at themselves as those educators for not only the community, but their employees. I think it's really important to being successful.
Well, I'll have to say, in my younger life, I had a lot of jobs where I worked really hard for not much money. And, farms are particularly stretched right now with the raise in minimum wage, just trying to keep, the farm feasible with those requirements. So, increase in pay might not be an option. When I think back about my earlier life, it's like what I remember the most about like being on a trail crew is playing hacky sack at lunch, like that sense of community where we got to goof off together and develop friendships. Any opportunity to help people feel good about themselves or valuable for their contribution, or in any way they could be creative and contribute to a fun environment for the crew. I think those are all like winning formulas. I don't want to make this trite, but I really appreciate the struggles that farms have retaining employees, because it's easy for a farm worker to come into town and work for retired people trimming hedges, for more money an hour. And that's a reality. It's difficult. And I think that the workplace culture, could help offset that a little bit. And do contact us if you want some support or help, Kristina, Casey, or myself at the EDC, and we'd love to help you brainstorm.
Great question.
So Casey.
All right. Let's see here. So first, I do want to thank Kristina. She did such a fantastic introduction and overview. And if it sounds like I'm being repetitive, well, I've heard that when you hear things twice, you internalize them more. So this is your opportunity to really get some solid takeaways. But it also means that Kristina and I have really aligned visions, and I'm excited about that. So talking today about innovative retention strategies. So that is definitely one of the things that I work with clients on as part of my work with Kinship. I work one-on-one with local businesses in Jefferson and Kalaloch County. So my entire approach is almost entirely small businesses who don't have the capacity or even the need yet for a full-time HR manager, but are ready to get support and to offload a little bit of the HR tasks that they've been having to manage internally. I think there are so many businesses here who fortunately are at this really burgeoning, beautiful stage of growth, where they want to take the next step, but they don't need a full-time. And I'm really specializing in bridging that gap and supporting that transition so that you can grow sustainably. I think a lot of times people are sales or growth minded, and it's very urgent. And the HR is kind of like, yeah, we'll get to that when we get a chance. But if you can get ahead of it, whether through SBD support or support through the EDC or someone like myself, you're going to end up having so much more sustainable growth in the long run and be prepared to continue to increase your capacity over time. So one of the great ways to do that is through retention and through investing in your team so they can help you grow. Let's see here. There we go. So one of the first things, and Kristina touched on it, is listen to your employee needs. I get asked all the time, what benefits can I implement? How can I keep folks here? But they ask me and they haven't asked their team yet. And so that goes to knowing your team, that goes to knowing the unique needs. And so that really starts with establishing that culture of transparency on day one. So in that onboarding, explaining your open door policy, explaining that, as I think often as small business owners, or particularly during the pandemic, you might not have daily interaction with all of your staff, but they need to know when and how to reach you. And they need to know that that's not intimidating, that there's no barriers to that. And that even if you're busy in and out, and say, I'm always running around, but if you text me, we will get a time in the calendar. Or if you email me, just being really transparent with the expectations there. Employee surveys can also work if you have a little bit of a bigger team. And surveys, I think, with really small teams can feel less personal, you probably have time, or you should make time to sit down with 3 or 4 employees if your team is that size. But if you have a larger team, conducting a survey and asking, what do you want? What do you need? What's most important to you? Kind of those needs that Kristina outlined. Is it compensation? Is it work flexibility? Is it the opportunity to grow in your role? Is it wellness on site? All of those different things. And then that will help you direct where you should put your efforts. Frequent one-on-ones. I'm a big fan of quick, structured, but personal one-on-ones. They don't have to take hours out of your day, but just having that moment of FaceTime and knowing that you are there to listen to your employees' needs is huge. It is both a retention strategy and a way to identify other opportunities for retention. Stay interviews are kind of that same sentiment, but if you want to take some designated time, it's a great way to ask what's made people stay and how can they improve upon that. I heard from a client who conducted a stay interview just how unique their culture was. And sometimes when you're so in the silo of your own work, you forget. And the employee really pointed out, I love this culture. It's so unique. I get to manage my schedule. I get to manage my clients. And so we put it on the job description, right? When we were hiring again, we put, this is a unique environment. Here's what our folks have to say. And we really got to hear it in their words, why they're here. And then Kristina pointed on mutual expectations. Huge, huge, huge believer in that. Folks don't know how to succeed if you don't tell them. And we can revisit them too. They can be simple, they can be complex, but knowing how to succeed feels really good, and not knowing doesn't. So on, recognition and responsibility, there's absolutely tons of studies and research that show that driving factors in job satisfaction are a sense of ownership and responsibility. Folks are invested in their work, or if they're not, they would really like to be. So how can we leverage that desire and also have it increase the success rate of your own business, right? And how can they contribute to the success there? So professional development is a term that gets tossed around all the time, and it might sound intimidating if you think about it in terms of tuition reimbursement or paying someone to go to school. That feels way out of your realm of your scope. But that could be a 1-hour workshop like this, right? If you have an administrative assistant who's kind of interested in dabbling in HR, give them an hour to attend something like this. It's free for you, right? It's a community resource, but you're telling them, I'm interested in what you're interested in, and I believe that you can contribute to our workforce. I know that you have it in you when they're given just a little bit of motivation and resources to go off of. So don't think very big. You can start at a really small scale. Another really small scale professional development tool is job shadowing. If someone is just in a restaurant, if they're a busboy and you think they're interested in serving, pay for half a shift where they can shadow a server. That's a low cost, low risk thing for you, but you can tell them, again, I'm investing in you. And if you're interested in this, let's find a way to make it happen. And the more responsibility you can offload your employees, the less for you. So that reduces your workload, which is always a good thing. I think we've all heard it so much during the pandemic. Having a flex or remote work schedule is one of the biggest things folks are asking for. Like we talked about with Alex, it's not always a liberty we have, but it's something that's a real buzz topic right now. And for me, we're getting to the point where it's really almost like an accessibility and a DEI inclusivity issue. When we look at studies about who has left the workforce during the pandemic, by and large, it's women have left the workforce because they have had to become the primary caretaker for their children while we were doing homeschooling, for elderly folks their parents or other family members who are at greater risk for illness in the pandemic. So they have those requirements now. They have those needs. They are caretakers. And it's our responsibility to build that into our job offer, right? Like, I really think that we need to take that lens to what we're offering. And like I said, it's not possible for everyone, but even if it's, you can take an extra 10-minute break to call and check in on your loved one, or yes, I understand you might need to leave for a couple more doctor's appointments than we might be used to, but we're already going to plan how you're going to make up for that. I think just being proactive and supportive about people, and that goes back to what Kristina was saying about knowing people, knowing their stories, that's huge. And then personalized recognition. I think, you hear about the folks that like bring donuts for the office, right? And then half their team is gluten-free and the other half is sugar-free. And the other half is like, that's the least creative thing. I know that's 3 halves, but listen to what they want and do something personal for your birthday. If someone has a green thumb, just buy them a plant. And if someone does have a sweet tooth, then they're the one to buy donuts for. It doesn't take a ton of time, but I think there's a ton of payoff. So we were also asked to bring up a couple of examples in action, a couple case studies. And so one client that I've been working with, actually, this has come up with several clients, is unfortunately, we are in this great reshuffle, great resignation, and it's not just one person leaving, it's 2, 3, 4 roles becoming vacant. And while that can feel so stressful, it actually is a silver lining opportunity because you're not just filling one role, you get to rethink your workforce structure. You get to think, well, maybe the way we divided the labor doesn't work anymore. And then you can start by asking the folks that you still have in place. So-and-so is no longer in the role. Is there any part of that role that's been interesting to you and you would like to take on? Let's build that in. We can call that a promotion, call it an expansion of roles. You're giving them more responsibility and ownership, right? They're going to love that. And so I really, really encourage folks to do a little bit of a workplace assessment and a workforce assessment before they just automatically think about the admin assistant left. I have to fill the exact same job description that I wrote in 2017, post it and get it done. Like, let's take a step back and think about what's best for you and your team today in this environment and not just replacing what you may have lost. Another example that I've worked with multiple clients on is building bonuses that work for you and your team. So we talked about that. Obviously, not all of us have the endless business pockets to just, add more competitive pay or add more bonuses. But there's some creative approaches to that. So I worked with a client who was in the hospitality industry. They upped their workforce during the summer and they obviously upped their client base, right? So they're seeing it's the busy season. The restaurants were busy. The hotel rooms were busy. So they instituted a $1 per hour bonus, seasonal bonus. So if you worked 100 hours between June and September, you would see a $100 bonus on your September paycheck. And that's a sort of profit sharing model, or at least it helps the business manage their expenses, right? So it's when you're gaining the season that you're gaining more revenue, that's the season where you're distributing these bonuses. So you can build that into kind of your annual budget. And then another one is if we're all thinking about how to be competitive employers right now, right? We're all thinking, why is my job post going to stick out against someone else's? I have to add healthcare today, or I have to add hiring a sign-on bonus. That's a big one. I have to have a sign-on bonus. But then you don't want your current employees to feel underappreciated. Well, why can't we call that a pandemic resilience bonus for the folks that have stuck with us throughout this time? Give those employees that and institute a sign-on bonus moving forward. So you're recognizing the folks that are with you and attracting the folks that are going to grow with you. I think that's a really great balance. I've got lots of other kind of creative little bonuses if you just want to start toying with that. I think it is just a great way. We all have our love languages. Sometimes it's gifts through donuts, and other times it's just a little bit of extra cash in that paycheck, right? So there's lots of ways to do that. And so that's kind of a couple of those examples, but I'm more than happy to keep answering questions or talk about some other things that have come up. I will also drop my contact info and website into the chat. And I will say, like, Kinship and my work, I work with one-time projects, one-time questions, or ongoing HR administration or project management. So wherever you're at, whether you've had one pressing issue or you're really ready to take that next step in your business and your staff management, there's something that we can design that should work for you. So thanks for all your time this afternoon.
Thank you, Casey and Kristina. Are there any other questions or comments or stories to share from our audience?
Cindy, I had one I wanted to ask.
Great. Good, Brian.
Just perspectives on the ground, and I'm glad you mentioned the Great Resignation, and you know, we could all wax philosophical as what's driving that, but it's a reality. And a lot of our rural businesses already struggle to find quality employees. What observations have either of you had with how rural communities are impacted by the Great Resignation, and anything unique that we can do or recommend to businesses, given just the uniqueness of our situation, not being an urban core?
Yeah, we are a rural community. I have really emphasized with some of my clients the need to meet folks where they're at. I think you'll see this whether in rural or metropolitan communities right now with the hiring environment, but the encouragement on a job post that if you don't meet all the bullet points, we still want to hear from you. I want to hear what you can bring. And like I said, when we're talking kind of about workforce restructuring, someone might have unbelievable marketing skills that I haven't even thought about tapping into for my admin assistant because my last admin didn't have one, have that skill set, right? But I just want to hear where you're at and then pursue that potential at least. And so I think we need to open our minds of like, I might not get that perfect round peg and that perfect round hole, but I might learn or find a new opportunity in the meantime. So I think that's a huge part of it is we need to kind of reframe our perspective as we look at hiring new folks. And with that also comes, you might be needing to offer on the job training. So, okay, if we do really need you to have Excel experience, come on board today and within the 3 months, we'll make sure you get an Excel training course. Yeah.
Now, what I'm seeing with a lot of my small business clients, being on Whidbey and having Skagit as well, super rural, and where we're seeing some of our businesses struggle, the ones that don't seem to be struggling are the ones that have the best workplace culture. So, Cindy kind of hit the nail on the head when she was talking about what she remembers playing hacky sack. And I failed to write this down, and so of course I forgot to mention it. But one of the things a business that I used to work for used to do was have their IT department worked super hard, and every day they got to end early, an hour early before everybody else, to play cornhole up in their offices, and they had cornhole competitions. But it's fun things like that, and I can think of a couple businesses here on the island that haven't had any staffing problems through all of COVID, and their workplace is fun. And now granted, they're retail places, and let's just say let's just call them, they sell food, but I have a client, so we keep client confidentiality. So that's why I have to say that. Can't say who they are, but they haven't had a staffing problem at all. And it really is that culture of their boss knows them. Their boss knows each and every single one of them, and they know each other, and they work together great, and they have fun while they're at work. And if we could, have that everywhere, it's going to look different at every small business, and every small business is going to have their own unique struggles. But that's kind of where Casey was talking about how, you really just have to kind of dabble with things to kind of manipulate it to the point where it works for you and for your team. And it's hard to see our small businesses suffering in the way that they are. Even our large ones. I mean, I went to Hagen the other day and they had everything shut down because they had no employees in the deli, and that was that. So it's going to take a while for things to start to even back out, I think. But the more that you can give to your employees, whether it be a personal relationship, compensation, wellness benefits, something along those lines, to show that they matter, the better on the spectrum you will be.
I worked out of Jefferson Healthcare for many years. And one year they offered a one-day ropes course to interested staff over on Whidbey Island. And that was unique because in a ropes course, you're doing challenging physical things you've never done. And in many of the obstacles, you need help from someone else to do it. And we really got to know each other on that day.
Thanks, David. That's a great example. Hey, Jay, I see that you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just have two quick stories on flexibility. One, there was an organization here who had some people who always were showing up late. And it turned out that the bus arrived at the facility, I think 15 or 20 minutes after their shift started. So either they were going to be 15 or 20 minutes later, they had to come 45 minutes early. So they shifted the shift, right? Instead of starting on the hour, they started quarter after or 20 after or something like that. And then everybody showed up on time. The other one was that there was a company who at some point they needed some computer work done, and they were discussing it. And it turned out one of the warehouse workers had computer skills. And so that person volunteered to do it and did a great job. And then, of course, had much more computer work to do. But I'd be curious as to your reaction to those two opportunities.
Well, the first one is such a great example of, well, if you just listen a little bit, if you just ask, right? Maybe we need to do more than listen and actually proactively ask, right? And ask not from a criticizing perspective, but from a how can I support you perspective. I wish all HR's problems were that simple of a solution, right? But that's a great example of like, we need to start asking what they think of, right? Because our employees, they live with these struggles every day. They're thinking about it. You might think of it as their supervisor, an hour a week. They're living with this every day. So what can we do? I love that example. And then, yeah, the warehouse example is a great one of just tapping into folks' potential. And also is a great example in rural communities, right? Like we don't have a lot of full-time IT positions or IT tech wizards, but just that one folk, I interviewed someone the other day who said, I said, what's your confidence level with Microsoft and Excel? And she goes, well, I'm a millennial, so I'm really good at Googling things. And I thought, I love that answer. Like so much of this is just being able to like have open eyes and Google and be willing to learn on the job. And I just love it. Like, yep, you sound like an IT manager to me. Great. And just, I loved hearing her open-mindedness and her eagerness to contribute. It was great.
Well, Catherine has a comment here that employees could buy a membership for their employees and families to sail aboard the Adventurous. I like that idea.
Admittedly, totally self-serving, but there's lots of cool things that are happening in communities where if maybe, you know, asking employees or getting a list together and saying, of these things, you know, would you like to do it? Then you do it on your own time and you can bring your family. You know, it could be anything, right? That may be something to do, which actually supports local communities as well. Just an idea. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, we even see, if you watch commercials nowadays, Domino's did something similar at the food level, right? They went around and bought gift cards to be from the local community to give to as giveaways to customers, so that they were all, you know, utilizing the same economic system, right? So the reason why this is a great idea is because people do want these things. People really do. And sometimes they don't know that they want them until they're offered, right? So I once got 1 opera tickets and I didn't know that I even like well, I like Phantom of the Opera, so I thought this will be fun. And but no, I really enjoyed it, and I thought, wow, what a give back that I wouldn't have thought of. But this is it. You get, if you win this week, you get free opera tickets. And it was great. And this is a wonderful idea because it does. It supports the community and other businesses. And it's really a great idea. Thank you for mentioning that, Catherine.
Yeah, that's great, Catherine. And I think about why I moved to a rural community is to be more involved, to get to interact with these small local nonprofits, community orgs, independently owned businesses, right? I was frankly tired of seeing Domino's on the corner. So if Brian's talking about how do we engage rural community members by engaging them in why did you move here? It was to sail on the adventurous, right? Like that seems so aligned to me. Really, really great idea and a great way to just, pay it forward and watch that single effort really expand in our community, which is what we're all here for.
Oh, you're on mute, Cindy.
You can't read my lips?
I was trying.
Well, one thing that I'm enjoying about this time is that I think that there's been, building resentment just due to how we've thought about employees and their role within the business. And now that everything's sort of on the surface and people are choosing not to return to work in the same numbers, and we just have this opportunity to rethink things, I see the opportunity for shifting our business thinking from looking at everything as a functional activity to looking at this relationally about what's the being state of our workplace culture. And there's just so much room for richness there and deep appreciation and capacity building and the recognition of the potential that's all around us and approaching that in a completely different way that's less based on production per hour, but rather on let's build this person who's
right.
making a huge contribution to our community. And we want to build our capacity collectively so our community can thrive.
Yeah, how do we partner with our employees rather than trying to get as much as we can out of them?
Mm-hmm.
Is that shift in focus?
Yeah. Well, any final words? We've got 5 minutes or so left in our hour.
I just want to thank you for inviting me and for putting this on. It's great.
Well, you're very welcome, David. I hope you can come back next month.
ECHO needs all the help we can get. So things like this are good.
Great. Well, we look forward to seeing you again. Well, thank you, everyone. Until next month, do check the EDC website for the grant link and the business plan class if you're interested. And we'll meet you here again next month on the third Thursday, if you're interested in another resource roundtable. Thanks so much.